Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video, and today I want to talk for a little bit about Jordan Poole. One of the biggest deals this past offseason involved Poole going over to the Washington Wizards alongside some other assets in exchange for Chris Paul going back to Golden State. If you had told a Warriors fan or really anybody about that trade a year prior, they would have thought you were crazy and that deal came out of literally nowhere, because going back to 2022, the year prior, when the Warriors won the title, Jordan Poole was a really important piece for them. In that season, he put up 18.5 points per game, 3.4 boards and 4 assists on 45% shooting, 36% from deep, and 93% from the line. He ended up finishing 4th in most improved player voting and was a critical scorer for a Warriors team that needed one desperately, especially when Klay Thompson was out and still recovering from his injury before coming back in the second half of the season. And even when Klay got back there, he was huge for them as a spark plug off the bench and a great overall supplementary playmaker. He also played really well in the playoffs too, despite being young and not having a lot of experience in those big time moments. He was great. He didn't play as much as he did in the regular season because of Klay's full return, but he still gave them 27.5 minutes per game while dropping 17 points, 3 rebounds and 4 assists on a fantastic 51% from the field, 39% from deep. Without Poole's offensive contributions, the Warriors probably don't end up winning that 2022 title. He was huge for them. In fact, he played well enough to earn himself a massive extension for 4 years worth $128 million, as he had become a very integral part of the Warriors' both present as well as their future. They wanted to compete for more titles now, and having a young guy who could give them that burst of energy as a scorer, as a playmaker, a guy that had a lot of room to grow was huge for them in the moment, but also going forward, thinking about the future of the Warriors after, Steph Curry retires or ends up declining a little bit, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, all those guys. It felt like Jordan Poole could be the next guy up to carry the dynasty forward. He felt like he was burgeoning into a future all-star, playing this well in just his age 22 season. Heading into his age 23 year, he felt like one of the more promising young players across the entire league, and it felt like only a matter of time before Jordan Poole continued to blossom, especially because in the first season of his career, by most advanced metrics, Poole was one of the worst players in the entire NBA, and now he was a critical piece to a championship contender. So everything was going great, and then 2023 happened. Before the season even started, there was the incident with Draymond Green punching Jordan Poole in the face. It was crazy to even see that happening to a Warriors team that felt like they had great chemistry. They all got along really well. They were going into a season where they were going to defend their title, and the year began with that. And following that incident, the Warriors really never felt right the entire season, and Jordan Poole in particular never quite looked the same as he was the year prior. He put up a career-high 20.4 points per game, which is great, but it came on way worse efficiency. The defense was really rough, worse than it was before, and the shot selection was terrible. There were more than a few times in the clutch where he was making a play that didn't make a lot of sense, and this came to a head in the playoffs where Jordan Poole was really, really bad. He put up just 10 points per game while shooting 34% from the field and 25% from deep, while again, playing some really bad defense. This coincided with the Warriors losing their first Western Conference playoff series since before their 2015 title. It had been over 8 years since they had lost a non-finals playoff series. Now, it wasn't all Jordan Poole's fault that they lost, but the fact that they gave him that big contract only for him to really struggle in the playoffs specifically wasn't the best look for them. Also, it was clear that they needed immediate help to get Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, the core that had won so many championships for them, another chance at winning an extra title before the end of their careers. There was also still the fact that the chemistry was weird between he and Draymond Green, most likely. From all the reports that we've heard, those two never really made up after the punch, so all this stuff seemed to indicate that there was a chance Jordan Poole could be traded in the offseason just a year after having an amazing run, being one of the critical factors to them winning a championship and getting a big bag in the process. And while it wasn't a certainty that he was going to be dealt when he did get traded, it wasn't that much of a surprise. He ended up being traded to the Washington Wizards alongside Patrick Baldwin Jr., Ryan Rollins, a 2027 second-round pick, and a protected 2030 first-round pick in exchange for Chris Paul. It made sense for the Dubs to try and add a veteran playmaker like CP3 to control the offense off the bench to make up for losing Jordan Poole, and in the meantime, send Poole over to the Washington Wizards, where Washington gets to take a chance on Poole, who was just seen a year ago as a potential future All-Star. He was under contract long-term, so if he played well, you had him wrapped up. You didn't have to pay him anytime soon, and he was heading to a new environment, no longer playing with a teammate that had literally punched him in the face. For Jordan Poole, he was no longer going to be under pressure to win championships right now. All he had to do was go out there and play his game, rebuild some confidence, and Washington felt like a great spot with no limitations for him to go ahead and just ball out for a season, refinance redefined his game and showcased once again why so many people were really high on him just a year ago. Because of all of this, naturally, people were really excited for Jordan Poole and what he could potentially do in Washington. I was one of those people. I had really high expectations for him, and there were people going way further than even I would have gone. There were people saying he was going to go out there and win the scoring title, just shooting a ton in Washington. People were saying he was going to put up like at least 25 points per game. Many people had him pegged as an MIP candidate, the front runner even. Some people had him as a dark horse all-star. Hell, you even had NBA legends like Kevin Garnett likening him to potentially being in a similar situation as James Harden when he went from OKC to Houston. Now, I wasn't going to go nearly that far, but I did, again, have some high hopes for Jordan Poole. Really, all I wanted to see was a somewhat efficient season from him where he puts up a bunch of buckets and establishes himself as a core part of Washington's future. That's all I was looking for in this season. And hey, maybe he ends up shocking the world and ends up becoming a high-level star player, now out of the shadow of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green in a new environment where he's just allowed to go out there and be himself. Fast forward to February 12th as I'm recording this, and unfortunately, the reality is that Jordan Poole may be the single most disappointing player in the entire NBA for me personally this entire season. Statistically, he's putting up just 15.8 points per game, 2.3 rebounds, and 3.7 assists to go with 1 steal and 2.1 turnovers, while shooting 40.4% from the field and 30% from deep. It's his lowest points per game, rebounds per game, and assists per game since his second season, and the lowest field goal percentage and three-point percentage since his rookie campaign. He has a true shooting percentage of just 51.5, which is the second worst in the NBA, only behind Scoot Henderson amongst all qualified NBA players this season. For comparison, outside of his rookie year, his worst true shooting percentage before this was last season, and that was a 57.3, which is significantly better than the 51.5 that he's at right now. He's also playing terrible defense with EPM, which is an advanced stat done by dunks and threes. It's a really good stat that kind of encompasses a player's value overall. It has him ranked as one of the worst defenders in the entire league, and you can see it when he's out there. The eye test matches the advanced statistics. Not to mention, he's currently one of the worst stretches of his entire season up to this point. 5 games ago at the beginning of February, they faced off against Miami, and he had 16 points, 4 rebounds, and 10 dimes, but shot 6 of 21 from the field, including 2 of 14 from deep. The game after that, he went up against Phoenix, just 4 points on 1 of 7 shooting. The game after that, he hit the lowest point probably of his Wizards tenure so far, with no points in 25 minutes, shooting 0 of 5 before fouling out. It was his first 0-point game as a Wizard, his first 0-point game since 2021, and it ended up getting him booed at home by Washington fans. It really was tough. I hate to see it. I want to see Jordan Poole play well, and it just hasn't been clicking for him. Now, the past couple games, he's been better since that moment against Boston. He had 19, 2, 5, and 1. Did shoot just 7 of 19, but it was a close L against a great Boston team. So, you know what? We'll go ahead and take it. And this past game against Philly, and again, a close loss, he had 11 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals on 50% shooting. So, the games have been a little bit better, but those are performances that when the Wizards traded for him, they were probably hoping would be like okay Jordan Poole games. Not that that was going to be the highest point of his month up to this point. It is still early in February, but I'm sure it's got to be disappointing for the franchise that was probably expecting a lot out of Jordan Poole when they went ahead and added him. Speaking of Washington, we've gotten reports throughout the season that the Wizards already don't really view him as a core piece of their team going forward. The first report of this came back in mid-November. The season had just begun, and they were already like, yeah, we're not really sure if this is going to work. And I don't think his play lately has probably changed their opinions at all. His point per game average has either stayed the same or gone down every single month so far. And in 5 February games, he's giving them just 10 points per game on 30% shooting from the field and 20% from deep. I wouldn't have been surprised if the Wizards traded him at the deadline if it weren't for his pretty substantial contract. Because again, he's supposed to make $30 million or more over the next 3 seasons. They're probably not going to be able to move off of his contract if he keeps playing like this. Honestly, it's going worse than I ever could have imagined for him so far in Washington, and it's really disappointing. I had extremely high hopes for Jordan Poole, and if he was even just having a similar season to last year or even a regular bad season, I wouldn't be too concerned, but he's been one of the worst players in the entire NBA this season, especially amongst guys that are playing significant minutes. In fact, he's the lowest estimated wins added of any player this season that averages at least 28 minutes per night. That's incredibly disappointing. Again, this is a player that some people thought could be an all-star, could average 25 points per game. There are some people saying he was going to win the scoring title, become James Harden. A lot of those expectations were pretty unrealistic, but at the very least for me personally, I just wanted to see him play well. Hasn't been the case so far. It's been really disappointing, and I'm upset for Jordan Poole. I want to see him be good. I'm just not really sure if it's going to happen, if Washington is the spot for it to happen. He isn't in the best situation right now. I will go ahead and give him that. I'm not giving up on Jordan Poole. I think there is still a chance he gets back to being really good. He's just 24 years old. The Wizards don't have a lot of talent. It's the beginning of a rebuild, so things are kind of up in the air. The first year in a new environment after playing alongside, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. So it may just be an adjustment period. He's used to having a lot of help around him. Now a lot of the attention is on him as a guard scorer. I'm hopeful that as the situation changes and molds in Washington, or maybe he gets sent somewhere else, he lands in a spot where he can just, at the very least, be a really solid role player, a bucket getter, and someone who can find a long-term role in the league. I don't even need him to become an all-star at this point. I just want to see Jordan Poole back to the guy that we saw back in 2022, where he was a big piece on a title-contending team before the age of 25. That happens really rarely. It felt like he was destined to become an all-star. He was going to be the future of Golden State, carry them into their next era. And now that relationship is broken and he's in Washington, where I really don't know where he goes from here. Again, I want to reiterate, I'm rooting for Jordan Poole. I don't want to see him fail by any means. I'm never rooting for a player to fail. I hope Jordan Poole can find somewhere where he can be successful, whether it's in Washington or somewhere else. But for the moment, the Poole experiment in Washington has not gone well by any means. With all that being said, I appreciate y'all watching. Let me know down below in the comments what you think about the Jordan Poole situation. Do you think he needs to go somewhere else to thrive, or can he still thrive in Washington? And what are your thoughts on his play so far this season, as well as the Wizards as a whole? I haven't really talked about the Wizards too much this season because they've been really bad. I made a video where I kind of feature them when I talked about some of the worst teams in the league, alongside the Pistons and the Spurs. But Jordan Poole is definitely one of the most interesting parts of that team so far this season. But yeah, I appreciate y'all watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. I'll see y'all later. Everyone, say it back.